SBC Media.
Welcome to iGaming Daily, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe. Supported by SBC Summit Barcelona, the industry-leading conference bringing you the future of sports betting and iGaming.
SBC Summit Barcelona is where you can experience the entire global industry coverage under one roof. Join 10,000 industry professionals for 3 days of game-changing conversation and education. Get your tickets now at sbcevents.com.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of iGaming Daily, and I would love to say that we're in sunny Toronto, but only half of this is correct.
You could say it, the listeners won't know.
Well, I'm going to tell them the truth.
It's not orange here. So
it's not orange, yeah, that's a good point. But it's still raining, so there, my pun's gone there. So we are live in Toronto at the Canadian Gaming Summit. But I can't really say this next part, but alas, the heavens have opened, because Craig's ruined my pun. But the rain hasn't dampened our spirits, and hopefully it's not damped it for our guests either, who are joining me today, and that is Jessica Welman, the editor of SBC Americas and Canadian Gaming Business.
Hey.
Hey. How are you doing? Craig Davies, the editor of CasinoBeats, and Nick Ware, the business journalist at Canadian Gaming Business. How are we all doing today?
I'm all right. Happy to be in Toronto after a long trek to get here. It was worth it.
You did have a long trek to get here.
I know.
How long were you traveling for?
13 and a half hours.
How long should have you been traveling for?
Like 4? I mean, keep in mind, I'm in the same time zone as Toronto. I wasn't going that far. But yeah, it was a long travel day. I made it. And I'm celebrating my anniversary because my first day on the job with SBC was the first day of Canadian Gaming Summit last year.
Happy SBC anniversary.
Thank you.
Has it been a great year?
Lovely.
Lovely. Perfect. And Nick, how are you doing? You okay?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. This is your first ever SBC event, isn't it?
Breaking me in very slowly, hopefully, yeah.
Perfect. No, hopefully you've got a few things planned up, so we'll delve into what you've got planned later on.
Yeah.
And Craig, you were here last year. You're here again. You're not as high up this time in the hotel. But you okay?
I'm very enthusiastic then. You was here last year, you're here again.
I have had such a long day. I am trying.
Oh, yeah. Shall I just leave now?
I had so much enthusiasm for Jess and Nick, and then when it got to you, I saw your face, and I thought, no, I'm just gonna.
If you carry on with this attitude, I'm going to call you Rossi throughout the entire podcast.
Oh, no, don't. I'm sick of people emailing me saying, "Hi, Ross." Like, no, it's James. It's James. I sign off saying James. But no, perfect. You're all here, and we're recording this on Tuesday evening, just for reference to people listening tomorrow when this will go live. But today we've been at the Player Protection Symposium, and that'll be the topic of discussion today. So, Jess, we'll start with you, and I just want to know what your key takeaways have been for today.
I'll be honest. I didn't get to, intend as much of the symposium as I wanted to. But little teaser for later in the week, we've got an interview with Steve McAllister of Gaming News Canada, and we were talking a bit about just kind of setting the scene for this conference, in that you've got some coalitions forming, and the thing I've really learned about Canada is it's just a very complicated country for gambling, because you have provincial lotteries, you have land-based casinos that have deals with provincial lotteries, you have somewhere like Ontario, where you have regulated operators in addition to provincial lotteries. You have First Nations, you have bingo, you have charitable games. And, as much as I think you, James, have said, the U.S. is complicated, to me, the Canadian situation is always just, understanding those relationships a little bit better. It was good to get more context on that front. And I got a little more in the final panel of the day. They were talking about legal versus illegal sites and promoting responsible safeguards, because so much of Canada is still gray, and how to do that effectively. And I think the panelists kind of got to the point of some of this, which is that you're doing things certain ways in certain parts of the country. And because advertising is at a national scale, for example, ads for something that's just Ontario run across the whole nation. And how to balance that on an RG front is just a little difficult.
Yeah, I've spoken to a few people today, and my main focus of the conversation was more on the First Nation side of things, and just how complicated and how kind of, what's the correct word to say? Kind of tense it is between. Tense is probably the correct word.
Tense is the right word.
Yeah, how tense it is between them, and I think that's something I'm really looking forward to kind of delving in a bit more, hearing about. Nick, you was at a panel session today at 3 p.m. correct?
Yeah, 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
It was.
What was that?
So that was Player Protection Tech.
Okay.
So obviously, hot topic at the moment is AI. That was a running theme of it throughout.
Did they mention ChatGPT?
No, that didn't get mentioned.
Did they not?
No,
Oh.
it hasn't. No,
I thought everyone in the industry now mentions it.
I've heard that enough recently to not hear it again today. So thankfully not, no. But yeah, it's all about technology, AI, how we can personalize it and individualize it. The main thing was there's a lot of data already collected that's been stored. It's all about analyzing it now and how, as I said, how you can individualize it and personalize it to consumers.
Yeah, who was speaking on the panel?
We had, moderating was Bill Pascal. We had Paul Foster, CEO at Crucial Compliance. Dr. Mary Donahue, CEO of Wellness Centre. Rasmus Kjærgaard, Rasmus, CEO of Mind AI. And Bo Gray, co-founder of Wager School.
AI kind of interests me because I know I made a joke about ChatGPT, but it kind of seems like it's ChatGPT for me came out of the woodworks from nowhere.
Yeah.
It just sprung on us. I mean, I think I first saw it in a South Park episode, and that's not going to be the first South Park reference I make in this episode.
Look forward to it.
But I first saw it in there, and I thought, what is this weird thing? And then I searched it, I trialed it out, I thought it was just hilarious. And then all of a sudden, definitely in iGaming that I've seen it, everyone seems to be jumping on this ChatGPT craze, like they've been planning this for years. I'm like, that's the first time I've ever heard of it. But no, interesting. Anything else come from that panel? Anything?
Yeah, again, responsible gaming.
Yeah.
How we can apply it to tech and all that sort of stuff.
How can you be responsible with AI? Because there's a lot of people in the AI industry kind of trying to cut off AI because it's leading to a dangerous path.
Yeah, that was, again, part of the discussion. And I think Bill Pascal made a reference to it. There's some people within the industry who aren't helping as much on that sort of side, and they're blocking the pathway of how to sort of overcome that. So that's something to look out for in that panel, yeah.
I've seen iRobot, so I know where this path leads to.
Let me interject quickly that one thing I've kind of learned talking more with the data scientist people, there's a difference between automation and AI. Okay. AI is like a self-learning computer. I think in RG, automation, detecting player trends and those sorts of things that you can automate and have more warnings popped out and customize. I guess with AI, you could customize those warnings and things like that, or messaging. But, a lot of it is a long way from the robot uprising of.
Well, I think Terminator will disagree. But, Greg, what have you been up to today? You've been quite busy.
You sounded more enthusiastic there, so I'm happy with that.
I'm going to...
I will grace you with an answer.
Yeah, cut that.
Edit that bit out.
No, Craig, what have you been up to today?
It's been quite a fun, interesting day. There's been lots of different things. That siren might be for me. Sorry. It's been quite fun. I'm going to echo a bit of what Jess has said, so I'll try and brush over it. But one of the key things for me coming here was just kind of how different the industry is. And I know Jeff touched on that a few minutes ago, and kind of the learning opportunity here over these next few days is massive. And speaking to people from different provinces within the country, I had a good meeting with someone from Alberta, for example, and just learning like the different kind of nuances from province to province, if you will. That's been one of the key things for me, and one of the things that you can kind of learn more over these next few days.
Yeah, like we worked together on CasinoBeats. I think I've mentioned this too many times in a podcast. But
you worked at CasinoBeats?
I did.
Who knew?
What?
Whoa, what a shock.
And now look at him fly.
I know. I've spread my wings. But we worked together for about 3 years, 2.5 years, 3 years. And when Ontario was kind of opening up, or it was building up to the opening, it was such an intense time because it seemed like everyone, and I mean everyone that we knew in terms of suppliers and operators, were just entering this market and just putting all their like eggs in one basket with Ontario. And even though I mentioned the First Nation things is something I really want to get into because I think it's an interesting topic throughout this week, I really want to find out how people kind of entered the market, the hurdles that they kind of came across, and if it was actually, what's the right word, the the golden goose that sometimes he thought it might be. And I think it's just going to be an interesting topic to see people's opinions on things. But we will talk a bit more about the Canadian Gaming Summit, which is also why we're all here as well. Listeners, again, we will actually be at the event tomorrow by the time you're listening to this, so you will have more updates on it for Thursday's episode. But Jess, can you just give us a brief flavour about what your plans are, certainly over the next 2 days, and what you're looking forward to the most?
I think, again, like Craig said, we'll just say it a third time, understanding this market better and getting to see beyond Ontario. I feel like I've written so much about that province and I've gotten so much, but now it's, okay, well, is Alberta going to follow the same path as Ontario? What are they doing in Quebec? What does BCLC do? And getting that full rounded approach to Canada. So I'm looking forward to that. One of the panels kind of early tomorrow on the leadership track is Canada as an international innovation hub for gaming. And the topic seems interesting to me just because, like we've said, it's an unusual place where you do have a little bit of everything, that there are a lot of opportunities here that maybe aren't as obvious or apparent in other places, but it's also just a great panel. It's Scott Vanderwell, who's the CEO of PointsBet Canada.
Before you go on, I am going to be doing an interview with him.
I think right
tomorrow.
after this panel, actually. Yeah. Dale Hooper, who's GM of FanDuel Canada, Amanda Brewer, who I met earlier today, Canada's Kindred person, Scott Woodgate, VP of Canada for BetMGM, and then CGA CEO and President Paul Burns going to moderate that one. So
another shout out. I am also going to be interviewing him as well.
Well, I'm just going to follow you around all day then. I'm not going to the panels. That one I'm really looking forward to. And then after I enjoyed First Pitch so much in New Jersey, definitely going to be covering Canada's first pitch on Thursday.
Can you just explain a bit about First Pitch?
First Pitch is basically a pitch contest where startup businesses in the gaming sector each have like 5 minutes, really tight window, to deliver a pitch, and then they get like 5 more for questions. And I believe we have 3 finalists in this one. The one that gives the most persuasive pitch not only wins, bragging rights, but they win a package that includes advertising, consulting, investing, and all of the kind of support you need as a startup in the industry.
Perfect. And before, Nick, I'll come on to you next. Jess, you're the editor of SBC Americas. You follow America quite.
I do live there too.
Yeah, she does live there as well. But I want to know from you if there's any parallels from how kind of the US started to regulate online to what we're seeing in Canada, or is that nothing? No,
it's so different. So here in Canada, you've had online gaming for a really long time, honestly. I can't tell you how long the Crown corporations go back, but those are the provincial lotteries, and they offer, online gambling. And then you have like a much more kind of rampant gray market than the US has. We've been regulating state by state since 2013, if you think about New Jersey and online casino. And so from that Black Friday in April 2011, the gray stuff that's been happening in Canada stopped happening in the US. So it's proliferated for another, 10, 12 years. It's a lot more normalized here. And so, it feels very different. It feels like it's much more a part of the culture here, whereas in the US, I think I've said on the pod before, we're very, puritanical about online casino. And I think that's kind of the big reason why is they just had the government embrace it and regulate it and go with it so much earlier than we did.
Perfect. Cool. And Nick, what is your schedule like this week?
Well, so following on from what Jess said earlier, I think it's quite easy to focus on Ontario, especially since April 2022. It's been a lot Ontario. So tomorrow, one of the panels that I'm covering is sports betting across Canada, navigating the patchwork of a provincial rollout. So that is looking at the Ontario model and other provinces as well, and how other jurisdictions will they follow Ontario, or will they follow the other model? The effects of the rollout, going province by province, and how they're doing in each jurisdiction. Yeah.
Have I been saying Ontario wrong?
No, it's probably just me because I've had it.
No,
Ontario.
I've got a precedence of getting everything wrong in terms of names.
Yeah.
It's the reason I did not
I've
become a
done it
football
regularly
commentator. I am awful with pronouncing names. So when you were saying Ontario, I was like, am I saying this wrong?
Just been
I'm
a long
like
day.
14 minutes into this podcast thinking I have messed up massively here.
It's my first day of first event, so you have to let me off.
All right, cool. It's all on Nick. Anything else?
Esports as well tomorrow.
Esports.
Something we've done a bit less. We've covered a bit less on it. Obviously, more of a new emerging sort of topic. So yeah, that's across North America. So looking at US and Canada. So why is it thriving in Canada? Regulations as well, like versus the US, how they both sort of match up on each side. And yeah, how again, like today, all about data. The role data is playing in esports. So yeah, data for me at the moment. It's yeah.
I remember watching esports kind of when it first broke on the scene in the UK, and I thought there's absolutely no way it's going to compare to the US because it was just insane. Esports in general was insane, and seeing the growth of it now, it absolutely makes me regret not putting in more hours on FIFA or like Call of Duty when I was younger. I could have had a new career as an esports player.
Could have been the news KSI, couldn't you?
Maybe not KSI. But no, and I really do find the betting side of this quite interesting because I would never have put the two and two together, even though it is a sport at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I'd always seen it as kind of a kid-orientated thing, but just to see the developments in the betting side of esports is kind of fascinating to see. And I do think it's just going to go on another level in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, because that's going to explode at some point in the next couple of years. Yeah.
Going to be ridiculous. I hope it gets to the level of sports betting, to be honest.
Yeah.
I love gaming, and I think the two go together hand in hand. It's perfect.
Well, Chicken Little has been saying that sky is falling. I mean, how long Craig, you've been doing this a while. How long have you heard them say esports is going to be the next big thing? And is it the next big thing yet?
I mean, about as long as LATAM is an emerging market, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I think it is. I think if you look at the world of just video gaming in general, I believe this is a fact I've pulled from social media, so do not quote me as this is being gospel, but over 50% of the world population plays video games. Take that 50%, how many of them are using it as a professional manner, and then how many of them want to bet on them said games? I think it's going to be massive. And when the internet starts becoming a bit more rolled out in other countries where it's a bit limited at the moment, you're just going to see it spike. I think it's going to be huge. But again, we've been saying it for a while, so let's see. Craig.
It's a pretty jam-packed day. You're very enthusiastic, isn't
See, it started off as genuine, just being like deflated, not just looking at you, just being exhausted.
You guys should see James's posture. He's practically like sprawled out on a chaise lounge interviewing us, just like barely holding his head up.
It started as just me being tired, but as soon as you pointed to a load of emphasis on it, I thought, I'm going to play this.
I've got a load of panels.
Oh, are they good?
There's a few good ones. I don't want to mispronounce the province's name now, so I'm just going to call it the Big O. We've got one on the Big O, 1 year on, so that could be quite interesting. There's some good speakers on there. There's omni-channel experiences, which is going to look at like compliance across provinces, which will be quite good. But there's one I'm particularly interested in, which is omni-channel experiences about kind of the convergence of land-based lottery, iGaming. Mm-hmm. And obviously we've no idea what path that's going to go down, but from conversations today, like I was saying a bit earlier, how other provinces, and I'm not sure if this is the way it's going to go, but how other provinces approach the potential legalisation is going to be very interesting. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously you got the Ontario route. Sorry, I said it then, Big O, my mistake. But when you've got certain states who have kind of got this legacy land-based gaming experience already established, it's going to be interesting if they then go and legalise. What do? Do they then welcome all these international operators and potentially take some of that play away, or do they kind of show a bit of loyalty, I suppose, to the establishment, the legacy establishment?
Nick can tell you too, like OLG won't tell us how much money they make now that they've invited all of these people in, but on my panel today they said year-over-year revenues up 20%, that competition may be healthy and helpful. OLG is far and away the biggest operator in the Big O.
There we go. That's what I mean, though. That's what I mean. It is going to be interesting what approach the other provinces take. Whether it's just a full-on Big O approach, a bit more tethered approach. Do they just reject it all completely and stick with what they've got?
Perfect. And people can find out about that for the breaking news on CasinoBeats.com when you
Of
write
course
it
they
up.
can. We've already got an expert write-up on CasinoBeats from today.
I think I mentioned this when you was at CasinoBeats Summit in Malta recently. You are, without a doubt, the fastest and the speediest person at writing up a panel piece I've ever seen.
Is that a compliment I just heard?
It was an enthusiastic one, to be honest.
If Scott's listening, can we get that cut out and put on LinkedIn?
No, you are really fast at them. So the people who are actually listening tomorrow, it will probably.
It's already there.
No, his one's tomorrow.
Oh yeah, tomorrow's will already be there too.
It'll already be up on the website. Perfect. And we are running out of time now, so we're gonna have a quick little fun question to sign off on. We did it in America. What was your favorite thing about New York? I'm not gonna do it about Toronto because apart from the CN Tower, I don't really know anything else in Toronto. But what was, in fact, I was gonna say what was your favorite thing about Canada, but what was the first memory or the first thing you can remember hearing about Canada? I think that's a bit of an interesting one.
Dudley Do Right.
What is that?
Oh, do you guys? So Rocky and Bullwinkle. Do you know?
Oh, I do know. I know Rocky and
So
Bullwinkle.
Dudley Do Right was like a Canadian Mountie character on Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Okay.
And so I always, like, 6 or 7, my concept of Canada was that it's, where the Canadian Mounties and moose are.
Ah, so I knew Rocky and Bullwinkle, but I thought that was the origin of Rocky and Bullwinkle. I didn't know it was like a little spin-off. Nick, come on. What's your first memory of anything Canadian?
Well, I think we've briefly spoken about this before, haven't we? Drake for me. I know James.
Small child.
Yeah, suddenly everyone's fallen over and not. James is a fan of
Googling
Drake.
who Drake is.
Yeah, James
Ross is
also
a
didn't
massive fan.
James, thank you.
James did not know who's Canadian until about 5 minutes ago. So
You didn't have to admit that.
yeah,
on the
you've let a nation down there.
Yes, he did. Much like I encourage all of my writers to bash on James as much as possible when
It's
they
a
go
trend
on the
from your
pod.
team.
Yeah, so Drake and Party Next Door, which again, not your music, I guess.
Just not my flavour, bro.
Not your flavour, but it's my flavour. So yeah, Drake and Party Next Door are the two Canadian things for me, yeah.
Perfect. Craig?
I'm
Craig?
not really
I
sure.
just said American then. I was like, Craig?
I know, that was appalling. It's probably because I've been calling you Rossi for the past 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to start calling you Craig now.
I'm not really sure. Earliest memory, I used to have a friend when I was very, very young. He used to go to Canada quite a lot because he had family there. And it always just, when he was a child, always just seemed like somewhere that was so far away I was never, ever going to go. So I'd probably say that. Although, to answer the question you didn't ask, your favourite thing is definitely, without a doubt, how friendly the people are.
They are
That is
ridiculously friendly.
incredible.
It's not a joke. It's
Yeah.
real.
It's such an amazing place, and the people are so good, and they really do make it.
Yeah, no, I'll echo that. I thought it was just a cliche stereotype that people put, but
Ditto.
it has been ridiculously friendly. I've not had one bad alteration here, which is
It's probably because you've not driven.
good
You
point.
can
Yeah,
get quite angry behind the wheel.
certainly after New York. Cool. So my first kind of memory of anything Canadian or Canada is probably the South Park film with Canada. Not a really good realistic representation of them. But also it was the film Brother Bear. I don't know if you've seen it.
I've seen it because I worked at Blockbuster, and when it came out, we would like put it on the TV. So I don't
Yeah.
really remember too much other than there are bears.
Yeah, so when they went on the little adventure, the bears, they ran into two mooses?
I think it's moose.
Two moose. And I believe they were played by Cheech and Chong.
Ah,
And
very Canadian.
yeah. Oh, that's another one actually. We could say Cheech and Chong. But yeah, they were like, it's kind of like the first impression that I ever did of a Canadian. It was like, I'm not a moose. I'm a Wolverine. And it was
Is that
just,
your Canadian
that's my
accent?
Canadian. It's my Cheech and Chong Canadian
Oh, wow.
impersonation.
Scott, we've got another one.
So they were mine. And on that note, I'm going to end it before I get ridiculed even more. For the listeners out there, again, any write-up that Craig, Jess, or Nick do in the time being, I'll put it in the description below. But make sure to join us all tomorrow, where I'm again joined by Jess, Nick, and Craig.
You ran out of enthusiasm one last time.
I'm not going to be here tomorrow.
That guy.
I'm not going to be
I
here.
feel better about Ontario now, I think. Yeah, I feel better about that.
So I'll be joined by all of you tomorrow for the first day of the Canadian Gaming Summit. So to our listeners out there, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of iGaming Daily, brought to you in conjunction with SBC Summit Barcelona, being held at the Fira Barcelona Montjuic on the 19th to the 21st of September. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network, or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.